Okay.
All right, our first story takes us to Seattle, Washington. It is breaking news. Earlier today, Divest SPD, their researchers and reporters over there, coupling onto work done by Crosscut and coupling onto some work that we did very early in January, has tentatively identified all 6 officers who were allegedly in Washington, D.C. on January 6th during the insurrection. Seattle had more off-duty police officers at the insurrection than any other police department in the United States. Of the cities with identified officers in Washington, D.C., Seattle so far has not disciplined a single officer. In some other cities, officers have been fired, officers have been arrested, officers have been suspended without pay, facing termination. None of that has happened in Seattle. There was supposed to be a court hearing on April 2nd to debate on whether those names were released. That court hearing was canceled because lawyers decided that the point of it was moot and that the names may not come out for months or until the OPA investigation is done. OPA is committed to releasing their findings within 180 days of their investigation. So we should be hearing things in June or July. Let's go through the names of the alleged attendees of the insurrection and a little bit about their backgrounds. First of all, we have Scotty Bach. He's an acting lieutenant from October 2020 through, Jennifer, this is kind of interesting, through January 6, 2021. He was demoted to sergeant on January 7th.
Wow. Huh.
He's currently under investigation with the OPA for 3 different incidents, including being potentially at the insurrection on the 6th.
Wow.
Sergeant and Canine Officer Jacob Brisky. He's the subject of multiple use of force complaints. There have been over $550,000 in lawsuits against the city due to his direct actions. One of those resulted in a $269,000 settlement to Ramel Bradford for wrongful arrest in 2008. And he's a canine officer.
Oh, please let me do the next one. Please.
I know you, yes, you can do Love American Style. Go ahead.
So Alexander Everett and Caitlin Rochelle were previously identified by a number of outlets, including us. They're a married couple. They started with SPD in 2017, married in December 2020, going to Washington, D.C. to hear Trump speak and potentially participate in the insurrection was their honeymoon, David. Both are suspended with pay, and both were reported by coworkers for their attendance.
They're the most interesting one because fellow police officers reported them at being at the insurrection. We know that the federal prosecutors have over 440 arrests. They say they're going to break over 500.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that their own officers came forward and said, and I find it also interesting that we're getting into May and the feds have taken no action and the city has taken no action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jason Marchione. He works with Caitlin Rochelle. They're co-workers. They're out of the same precinct. They work the same shift. 45% of the use of force complaints that have been lodged against Jason have been by Black people.
Big shocker, right?
Kind of, yeah.
So then we have Michael Settle, who's the acting sergeant detective specializing in human trafficking. Little is known about him, but he's been on the Vice Squad since 2011. So for a minute, he's been there.
Yeah, there's not like OPA complaints against him. There's not a lot of use of force complaints. There is really not a lot of paper trail behind. And again, all of these are alleged, have to stress that. However, the research that's gone into this is pretty solid. The other thing
Yeah.
I want to say, and no, we're not platforming cops. There is a presumption of innocence here, and part of them saying that is so we don't get sued. No one has been charged federally, as we noted, for their actions on January 6th. No one has been disciplined. Andrew Meyerberg claims the clock is running for the findings on these cases. And I think, like every other news outlet here in the Puget Sound area, we're going to keep checking and waiting for the findings on these investigations.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was a little bit shocked today when the list came out that 3 of them are actually higher ranking sergeants within the police force. And what is that? One was like, I believe, a sergeant detective. And so how does their particular political ideology and what it represents factor into how they do their job?
It's a really valid question, Jennifer. The other one was the one that I called out, the first one on our list, who was an acting lieutenant and was demoted on January 7th, which it's hard to find any, you look at January 7th and it's like, okay, that's a Wednesday. So it's like, that doesn't add up. It's not like it's the 15th or the 1st or a Friday or it's like middle of the week. That one's kind of like red flag going off there. All right. Well, we will continue to monitor that story. We're going to do a little pause for the cause, and then we're going to go to our next story.
Yay.